As you are entering the seminar, I will start with a brief disclaimer. CLE presentations are intended for educational purposes only and do not replace professional judgment. Statements of fact and opinions expressed are those of the presenters individually, and unless expressly stated to the contrary, are not the opinion of the Florida Bar or its committees. The Florida Bar does not endorse or approve and assumes no responsibility for the content, accuracy, or completeness of the information presented. Any feedback should be provided to the event organizer. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Florida Registered Paralegal Enrichment Committee's May 23rd, 2025 free CLE webinars, Veterans Law Basics, Identifying Issues, and Exploring Career Opportunities. During the webinar, if you have a question for the presenter, please post it in the question and answer section at the bottom of the screen. Some of the questions will be answered by the presenter at the end of the presentation. Due to time constraints, there may not be time to answer all questions. At the end of the webinar, I will provide everyone with the course number, which you will use to self-report your credits in the member portal. I will now turn it over to the FRP Enrichment Committee CLE Subcommittee member, Vanessa Marin.
Thank you, Diana, and good afternoon, everyone. The Florida Registered Paralegal Enrichment Committee invites our participants today to visit the FRP corner on the Florida Bar website, as well as our various social media platforms. It is there where you find helpful tips and announcements of upcoming events and our monthly webinars. Next month, we will not have a webinar, but we hope you will join us in person for FRP Day at the annual Florida Bar Convention. The FRP seminar is free, but advanced registration is required. Please see the FRP corner on the Florida Bar website for details. Now, today's presenter, Victoria Seabol, is an associate attorney at Sutton Snipes, where she focuses exclusively on veterans law, assisting veterans in securing VA disability compensation. Since earning her law degree from Stetson University College of Law in 2019, she has devoted her career to advocating for veterans. Victoria represents clients at all levels of VA claims process, including VA Regional Office, the Board of Veterans Appeals, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Thank you, Victoria, for presenting today, and I will now turn it over to you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Happy Friday. So I did want to mention, because Vanessa obviously had to read off a script, that Vanessa is actually my paralegal and has been now for about 5 years. So I told her I may want her to chime in here and there and provide her perspective, because obviously that's probably more relevant to you guys. But I definitely wanted to gear this veterans law on a basic level for paralegals and get real practical here too. So first slide, of course, is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me after this presentation with any questions or concerns. I'd be happy to help. And same with Vanessa, feel free to reach out to her as well. And one thing I wanted to start off the presentation with too is that my practice is solely in veterans disability compensation. So we're going to touch on a couple of different areas of law, but that is my sole practice. So if you do have questions on the other areas, I may not know the answer, but I can definitely point you in the right direction. And the materials I included that you guys will receive after this presentation will also point you in the right direction. And one other side note, I am also very, very pregnant right now. And so I do find myself out of breath sometimes. So I'm going to try to not let that affect me in this presentation. So bear with me here. So the session objectives today is, of course, identify common veteran-specific legal issues. So obviously veterans are like any other person in our country. They could have family law issues, civil law, anything can apply to them. But today we're focusing on things that are related to their veteran status. We're also going to understand the VA disability compensation system, which is, of course, my practice. And we're going to identify common legal issues within that disability claims process. And I want you guys to be able to guide leads and clients to credible resources that I will provide And the fun part, we can explore some career paths in veterans law if you are interested. So, why veterans law matters. So obviously, there are a ton of veterans in our country, and I'm sure a lot of you are veterans yourselves. So it is important that there are knowledgeable experts that are able to assist veterans in this very messy disability compensation system and other systems that affect them. Which goes to my next point. Veterans law matters because the VA disability system and these other systems are so complicated that even attorneys often make mistakes and commit malpractice, just don't have an understanding of the system. I often tell people, my personal opinion is I don't think attorneys should dabble in veterans law. I do think you should dedicate your practice to it, or a large part of your practice to it, just because there's so many nuances to this area of law. It's very different than other things you can practice in. Of course, you guys as paralegals are the front line to leads and new clients and identifying and referring issues. You guys probably talk to veterans all the time in your practice, so it's important to know how to guide these clients. So, spotting veteran-specific legal issues. Listed a bunch here, but the most common thing that an attorney or person will think of when they hear veterans law is disability compensation, which, like I said, is my practice. We'll discuss that at length today. Also applicable is pension benefits for veterans. We're not going to get too much into that today, but briefly, the difference between disability and pension compensation is pension is a benefit for based on financial need. So they look at the veteran's assets and property and determine if they are below a certain level. They also look at whether you are over the age of 65 or you are permanently and totally disabled. Whereas disability compensation, they're not looking at your assets. That's completely irrelevant to those claims. Overpayments and debt collection is another veteran-specific legal issue. So often the VA will commit clerical errors and overpay a veteran in their disability benefits. Or a veteran may, divorce from their spouse and they were receiving benefits for that spouse, and the VA kept paying, and then later they find out. The VA will try to recoup that debt from the veteran, and they may be calling your office to ask for help with those issues. Discharge upgrades are probably pretty obvious to you guys. So basically, when a veteran receives anything other than honorable service discharge, they may want to upgrade that, and there's a whole system for that. Access to VA healthcare. Sometimes veterans are denied access for many different reasons, which can be discussed later if needed. And housing and homelessness, unfortunately, as all of you know, that this is a very common problem for our veterans. So there are programs and benefits available to those. Gotta take a breath, running out of breath here. So, and by the way, Vanessa, feel free to chime in. I know you're there. So let's focus on VA disability compensation. So what is it? So tax-free monthly payments, obviously, that's great. For service-connected injuries, which we'll get into the specifics of that in a minute. And it is based on a rating system in increments of 10. So 0 to 100%, 10%, 20%. And those numbers correlate to a specific dollar amount. So I don't know them off the top of my head, but let's say 10% is $100-something per month for that veteran. And how the VA chooses those ratings is based on the disability's impact on their ability to function and their employability, their ability to work because of that disability. And you can easily, by the way, look up the current disability rates on Google if you guys are curious of them on the numbers. So what qualifies as a service-connected disability? This is very important. So when you have a client call, you got to evaluate, okay, can this disability that they have, can we even get it connected to service in order to get that rating? So let's start off with direct service connection, which is the most common. So I'll use this example of, let's say a veteran in service falls off a truck or suffers pretty severe wear and tear on their body from their various physical training activities. They injure their right shoulder. And after service, they continue to have problems with that right shoulder. That disability is obviously directly related to their service. So that is direct service connection. Another important note that I want to point out is that veterans, when they are on active duty, they're considered on active duty 24/7. So the obvious example that I just provided, okay, yeah, that they injured their service from falling off a truck. Well, if the veteran is on active duty and they get into a car accident, whatever injuries they have from that car accident can also be service connected under direct service connection because it began during that time frame. Secondary service connection. So let's stick with my shoulder example. So let's say that same veteran has a shoulder issue. Because they can't use their right shoulder very well, they start using their left shoulder, overusing it, and that leads to arthritis. Well, now this left shoulder can be service connected on a secondary basis, even though that left shoulder wasn't injured during their active duty service. So you can already start to brainstorm all the different ways that you can get things service connected with that secondary service connection. So presumptive service connection is one that you guys have probably heard about a lot in the news. So veterans that served in Vietnam or other areas like burn pits can get automatic service connection for specific listed disabilities that they suffer from that exposure. That's presumptive. Aggravation. So this is an interesting one. Let's say that same veteran with the right shoulder before service had played football and they injure their shoulder in football. They end up having surgery. They enter service with a little bit of a right shoulder problem still. Well, if their service records show that although they began service with this injury, service made that injury worse, aggravated it, then they can get service connected for that disability. So that's another interesting way veterans can be service connected. Next, I want to talk about some of the requirements, components of a successful VA claim. So in order to get these service-connected disabilities granted, you've got to have a couple different things. First, current medical diagnosis. This is probably obvious. You have to be diagnosed with something. But caveat here is that the veteran doesn't have to have that diagnosis when they file the claim, because it's very frequent that our clients will call us, say, hey, I filed a claim for my right shoulder pain. They don't know what's causing that pain. Is it arthritis or some kind of tear? Then later on, they're diagnosed with something. That is perfectly fine. They don't have to have that diagnosis when they file the claim, just at some point in the claims process. Of course, in-service event or injury, we already discussed that, what that is. something happened in service. An important note about claims related to PTSD, you don't necessarily, or let's say military sexual trauma is unfortunately a very common claim as well. You don't have to show that this, police report of this incident happening. There are regulations that loosen the standards for PTSD and MST situations. For example, if there is noted in the veteran service treatment records that there was behavior changes, the veteran asked to be transferred from their unit, they were reprimanded, they start behaving different, and things like that can be used to show an in-service event for, say, psychiatric PTSD, MST claims. Okay. Nexus, of course, we got to show the connection between that current medical diagnosis and the in-service event. This is probably obvious, but there's situations where, let's say, using the example of the veteran with the right shoulder, what if they get in a car accident after service and they continue to injure their right shoulder? Then we have a problem. We got to show VA, no, the original injury was from service, not from that car accident, although the car accident may have made it worse. Supporting evidence, this is very important for you guys as paralegals because Vanessa, for example, I do often have her work directly with the clients to get statements that explain what happened in service, explain the connection and their symptoms after service. This can be statements also from other people that witnessed the injuries. And then, of course, medical records, independent medical exams. Our firms often request those as well. And Vanessa plays a huge role in those. Okay. So what happens when a veteran applies and they're denied? So right now we have a new system, which some of you have probably already heard about. It's called the Appeals Modernization Act, which was implemented in February 2019, which completely revamped the VA system. And it provided more options for the veteran. It can be more complicated because of all of the different options, but I've listed the options here. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on these because there's so many caveats and things with these different forms. So if you have questions on these options, please save that. I will totally answer it and get into the weeds with you guys. But listed here, supplemental claim, higher level review, board appeal. Quick note on the board appeal is the board appeal takes the claim up to the Board of Veterans Appeals, which is a separate entity from the agency or the Veterans Administration. So think, here's the agency, here's the board, and then above that is the court system, which we'll get into in a moment. There are extremely important strategic considerations when picking these options. You do not want to pick these options willy-nilly. It could greatly affect the success of the claim. So just be aware of that. So what happens if they keep getting denied? They get denied at the Board of Veterans Appeals. Well, like I said, you can take it up to the court level. So the court I practice in and takes on these types of claims is the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, the CAVC for short. Independent federal court, I think it was established in 1989, if I am correct, which is fairly new in our court system. And it reviews the final decisions of the board, gives no deference to factual findings, which also means it's not a trial court. You're not going to be presenting evidence. You're looking at the record that was already present at the board level. Then, if you're unsuccessful at the court, you can take it up to the federal circuit, and they only review legal or constitutional issues, no factual disputes at all. And then, of course, as everyone knows, after that is the Supreme Court. And it is rare that the Supreme Court does take veterans' cases, but it happens. And recently, a huge one was Kaiser v. Wilkie. So veterans law does tend to get into the Supreme Court at some point. Okay. Next here, we have frequent VA errors. So where do we begin? So wrong effective dates is the most painful and annoying I see all of the time in the VA system. And you may have clients calling your office explaining, hey, I believe the VA picked a wrong effective date. So it's important for you to understand what does the client even mean by this? So an effective date is the date that benefits begin. For example, let's say it takes 2 years for a veteran to get service connection. The VA will owe that veteran each month of benefits back to the date that they initially filed. So 2 years worth of benefits, which can be a significant amount. So obviously it's very important what effective date is chosen. So you need to be on the lookout for effective date issues. Clients can often not understand that the VA awarded an effective date issues or awarded the correct effective date. So it's important to know some of those rules. Of course, low disability ratings, it's pretty obvious. The veteran believes their right shoulder is more severe than the VA chose. Let's say the VA chose a 10%, they think that they should be entitled to a 30%. Ignoring favorable evidence. Oh my God, this happens way too often. You may be surprised, well, isn't the VA required to look at your evidence? Of course they're required, but they don't. It's unfortunate that you can spend hours and hours gathering this perfect submission and medical evidence and records, and you look at the decisions and it's like, okay, they didn't even mention any of it. So that's a frequent problem that we have to deal with. Inadequate VA exams, very common. This can mean that what happens basically, taking a step back, is when a veteran files a claim, oftentimes the VA will go send them to a doctor to evaluate whether they have the disability and whether it's connected to service. And sometimes those exams can just be bad. The doctor didn't know exactly what they were talking about, or it was too short, things like that. Then missed appeal deadlines or filing errors prior to the veteran calling your office. You can find that pretty frequently too. So let's get into some relevant law and resources that you guys need to be aware of. So if you need to look into veterans law issues or just the claims forms that are required, really anything, this is where you want to start. The Veterans Benefits Manual. If your law firm has access to LexisNexis, that is amazing, because unfortunately that's the only place you can find the Veterans Benefits Manual unless you buy it on your own, which I believe it's very expensive. But that's a great starting point because it explains everything in plain language, and it sends you to the relevant statutes, case law, so on and so forth. And then, of course, moving into the statutes and regulations that apply to veterans law, you're going to be looking at Title 38 in both the USC and the CFR. So take a deep dive into those regulations and statutes. Case law, of course, we already talked about the courts that we look at. And last but not least, this is something you may not have heard of. The M21 is the procedure manual for VA employees, and it's available to the public, and it's very useful for understanding what the VA thinks that they should be doing, because sometimes the manual can actually be wrong. That's a long story and a different presentation, but it's helpful to use, especially as a paralegal. Sometimes the attorney you're working with may say, hey, so-and-so, can you prepare a quick appeal arguing that this exam was inadequate? Well, to include in your appeal, you can go and look at the M21 and find, what does VA say is required for an adequate exam? Let me include that for the VA and say, hey, VA, this is what your own manual says. You didn't do this. So knowing the M21 is very important. Okay, so I did include a separate slide for TDIU and mental health claims, but I am going to skip it for now because I definitely want to get into some of the other stuff. So if you guys have questions on what TDIU is and any of these other things, please go ahead and ask. Which, let me see if I do have any questions. Okay, I just say I do have one question so far, but I'm going to save that for the end. So I wanted to include a slide that discusses some things beyond the legal work when you're working with veterans. So first and foremost, veterans often don't understand the extent of the benefits they're entitled to. So even if you're a paralegal at a firm that doesn't practice in VA disability compensation, if you're just aware of these certain things like pension, discharge upgrades, and even you now have heard of effective dates, if you can point the veterans in the right direction, referring them to other resources, that is just so helpful instead of saying, sorry, our firm doesn't handle this issue. And I know it'll be greatly appreciated by these veterans. Next, an unfortunate reality of this area of practice is you need to be able to recognize the signs of PTSD, military sexual trauma, and traumatic brain injury. This is important because it will affect how that client interacts with you and the firm and with the VA itself. And learning how to navigate that is helpful, especially as a paralegal and having to talk to them pretty frequently. Also along the same lines, listen for language indicating suicidal ideations. This is it can be frequent in this area of practice, and just be aware of that. Having a list of reliable VSOs, legal aid, other referral sources is extremely important. We're going to get into that in a second. Using plain language when explaining legal concepts. This, of course, applies to any area of law. But as a paralegal, when you're talking to your veteran clients, it's especially important because the VA uses so many different acronyms, and you just have to keep in mind that the veteran may not understand these acronyms and to just steer away from that. There's also a lot of strange legalese. For example, if you are in the veterans law world and you know what Q is, no one else knows what Q is. So make sure you're able to explain that to a client. Q can be a whole other separate presentation. Trusted resources for veterans. So what happens when you do have a veteran lead or client and your firm can't help them, or so on and so forth? You can, of course, refer them to accredited attorneys and agents. I'm biased. I think this is the best option because I'm an attorney and Vanessa's an agent. Especially if you think that the issue is complex, like an effective date or something that sounds complicated, go that route. Let's see. VA.gov and eBenefits, you can send veterans to those websites. Of course, however, I included a caveat that these can also be inaccurate or outdated. So tell clients to take it with a grain of salt. You can always refer veterans to VSOs. Of course, you guys heard of VSOs. We usually refer clients to VSOs when they have an initial claim that they have not filed yet, which there's reasons for that we can get into. That's the best time to refer them to VSOs. Legal aid and pro bono clinics, there are a ton out there. One I want to mention is the Veterans Consortium program, which is a program that assists veterans that are at the court level. And there are pro bono clinics throughout the country at law schools that can provide free assistance. I went to Stetson. We have a clinic there. That's actually how I began my career. It's a great place for veterans to go if they need to. Some red flags to be aware of, and I would suggest not pointing your clients in these directions, is claim sharks, which I know has been talked about a lot in the news, and there's current legislation being proposed on claim sharks. A lot of you may not know, though, just brief, a claim shark is being referred to as those organizations that are unaccredited and usually act pretty unethically. If you guys have questions on claim sharks, I can answer that, but I don't want to get too much into it. And watch out for the YouTubers, the bloggers, all that stuff that you can find on Google. We often have clients calling saying, hey, I saw this or I heard this on a YouTube video, and the veteran really goes down those rabbit holes. And unfortunately, the information is inaccurate or it doesn't apply to them. That can be really tough. So make sure to, I don't know, guide clients away from those sources. So some of the fun part here. Let's talk about careers in veterans law if you guys are interested. So first and foremost, and my favorite, because I work at one, is a law firm that focuses on veterans law specifically, private practices. There's a couple different kinds that I want to discuss. My firm, we practice at the agency level and the court level. Not all firms do this. Some firms will practice at only the agency level or only the court level. There are pros and cons to these options that I want you to be aware of. If you're a paralegal that prefers more of the traditional court system, filing motions, the appellate process, very strict deadlines, you would probably prefer to work at a firm that does the court work exclusively or mixed. Whereas on the other hand, firms that only practice at the agency, that's where a lot more creativity comes into play, because you're developing evidence, you're working more directly with the client and getting evidence, or medical evidence, opinions, statements. So you'll probably be talking to the client more, and you just have more flexibility on developing the process. So those are some considerations. Of course, there are also the nonprofit and advocacy roles out there. There are the pro bono organizations that I talked about before. You can become a paralegal or an agent. VSOs are also great options. Government positions, of course, the other side, the side that I fight, but we need good people on the other side too, is working at the VA, the Board of Veterans Appeals, or being a paralegal at the court too. That's not necessarily the side I'm fighting, but you know what I mean, government position. I've talked to many people that work at the VA and at the court, and it can be a good gig. So take a look at that. One thing I want to mention is one pro for most people in the veterans law world is that there are a ton of work from home options and flexibility in this area. A lot of law firms like mine can be looking for part-time paralegals. We have paralegals at my firm that are exclusively part-time, work from home. So if you're someone like that, that's a great consideration. Here, I got some more questions. I want to take a look here. Let's see. Okay, some really good questions that I'm going to get to because it looks like I'm going to have some time. So I'll move along here. So some things to think about when entering the veterans law world. This is just really my advice from my experience. Obviously, this can be an extremely rewarding career. These benefits can actually make a huge impact on these veterans' lives, especially when there is a large back pay award, which I can explain in a minute because one of the questions deals with it. For example, Vanessa and I, we've won benefits for clients that allowed them to rebuild their home after the recent hurricanes, or veterans that were homeless that can now, find somewhere to live because of these benefits. That can really make you love your job. So I love my job. I love this stuff. It's a great career path. Another thing to think about, these next couple go hand in hand. Patience is especially important in veterans law. Like certain other areas, there tend to be a lot of older clients, and veterans love. So with older clients, sometimes there can be memory issues, or they do just like having someone to talk to on the phone. So just being able to be patient with these clients and be willing to hear their story and what they have to share is key. And you must be a good listener, communicator, of course, especially in veterans law. You don't want to ask those yes or no answer questions. You really do want to get the full picture because these clients may not understand that certain disabilities or certain things they're suffering from may be service connected. Being able to pick those bits and pieces from the conversations is important. Learning how to set realistic expectations, be comfortable with giving bad news all the time in veterans law. Oh my gosh, we can have 10 unfavorable rating decisions before we finally get a grant for our clients. Being able to communicate those that bad news is, you got to be good at that. And also setting those expectations in the beginning right up front is important as a paralegal, as an attorney. Telling them, hey, this process could take years. Be prepared for that is something that you need to be able to do. Let's see. Of course, setting healthy boundaries is important. Where this comes to play in veterans law is, especially when you're dealing with clients that do have like psychiatric disabilities and they have to share really personal aspects of their lives with you. Sometimes the boundaries can feel blurred for that client, so make sure that you're good at doing that and being able to say no. Of course, the most obvious thing ever is never give out your personal number. We accidentally had to do that once for a client. That's a long story, but Vanessa can say that's a huge regret. So just be careful. Veterans law is a great career for those who love treasure hunting. And what I mean by this is the records and the claims files for clients can be thousands of pages, and there can be one page in that claims file that secures them large amounts of benefits. So if you love digging and finding that needle in the haystack, veterans law is definitely for you. I love doing that actually. When I get a claims file, the amount of pages don't scare me. Like, I'm just ready to dive in and find out what I can do. And I know Vanessa feels the same way. Okay. VA accreditation. So what is that? So basically it's, and the benefits of it. It is the legal authorization to represent veterans. Otherwise, it's technically illegal. It also allows you to charge fees once you are in the appeals process, which I can get into in a minute too. Accreditation allows you access to VBMS, which is the VA system that has all the veterans' records, decisions, everything. And it is extremely important that you have access to that. In my opinion, I believe it's malpractice to not have access to VBMS. So, imperative. With accreditation also comes professional recognition and trust. And it also puts you in the VA's directory, which is great. So how do you get VA accredited and who can do it? So really anyone, attorneys, agents, and VSOs. There is a difference though. If attorneys don't have to take a test because they presume, because you have to go through your state licensing and stuff. With agents, they do require a test, which Vanessa can answer questions on if you have those. And I think that's the main difference between the process. But the process is in the regulation that I have included here. And in the materials that you guys will receive is the application and the instructions on how to get accredited. Important note is there are continuing education requirements for accreditation. And Vanessa pointed this out to me yesterday that I should mention is you can't just use any general CLE to satisfy the requirements for accreditation. It has to be veteran specific, and there's a list of approved courses. Where to apply, I have included the website there for you. I must say the process can take a while. I know Vanessa can speak to this. I think my process took nearly a year. Vanessa may be the same. She'll chime in. It can take it depends so much on which office you're working out of. Next here.
The process for agent accreditation is longer. I think I waited over 2 years.
Yeah.
Then just to take the exam.
Yes. So if you're interested in veterans law, get on it now. Yeah. So thank you, Vanessa. Professional development opportunities. This is great for meeting people in this world and getting, more insights. I'm not going to get into all of these, but I do want to discuss NOVA for a second. NOVA, the National Organization of Veterans Advocates, is the best organization in my opinion. Very helpful people. The website has group message boards that you can post any question you want as a paralegal, as an agent, as an attorney, and people are there to answer those questions. And the resources they provide on their website is extremely helpful. So if you want to get into this area, check out NOVA. Of course, they do charge to be a member. Vanessa can also speak to this for the paralegal rate, but it's not too expensive. It's a year, it's per year, and I think it's worth it. Oh, okay, so I did make it through on time. Questions. So I have a bunch of questions here I'm going to go through, but feel free to keep adding some as we go. Okay, so the first question here, can you provide some clarity on disability compensation, as I've heard conflicting opinions? Specifically, does VA disability count as income when calculating child support? And can it be garnished for child support? Fortunately, I don't have this problem a lot with clients, which is a good sign, but I do believe it can be garnished for child support. And I believe it also does count as income. These are things I don't remember off the top of my head, so I don't want to say yes or no with certainty. But that's my best guess off the top of my head. Yeah, it can definitely be an issue, and I would be careful treading those waters for clients that have child support problems. Okay, who pays the attorney's fees for veterans? This is a great question, which why I saved it at the end and want to answer this thoroughly. So there are so many different ways that fees are charged, but if you are working at the agency level, law firms typically charge a contingency fee of between 20 and 30%. And what it's based off of is the eventual back pay award that the veteran is given. So let me put this in an example. The example I used earlier, let's say it takes 2 years for the veteran to get that favorable decision. The VA will pay that lump sum back pay award for those 2 years of benefits. The attorney that's working on the case gets the 20 or 30% of that. Of course, in your head, you're probably like, well, doesn't that incentivize attorneys to delay the case as long as possible? Well, it can. I'm sure there are attorneys that unfortunately use that mindset. But at the end of the day, if I have clients ask this question, I say, well, first of all, if you are questioning that, then it sounds like you don't trust me and as your attorney, and maybe I'm not a good fit. Most of the time they seem to trust me, so that's a good sign. But also, at the end of the day, law firms are businesses and we need to get paid. If your business model is delay, 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 and just put off all these fees for some future date, it's not smart. You're just going to be going month to month like, oh, when's the next payment? It's not smart to work that way. So like I said, the contingency fee is the main way. I don't even know if I've even heard of a law firm do any kind of hourly rate unless it's for something outside VA disability compensation, like a discharge upgrade, something like that. Maybe they'll do an hourly or just like an upfront fee. When it comes to the courts, let me go back to the initial question too. Sometimes I have to remind myself to take a step back because I get too much into the weeds and kind of assume that you guys know everything in veterans law. Your initial question was who pays the attorney's fees? So if, how do I begin? Under the VA regulations, if the attorney charges a 20% contingency fee, the VA withholds that 20% from the back pay. So technically that attorney will be receiving the 20% from the VA. If the fee agreement is for anything above 20%, usually it's up to a 30%, then you're outside the VA withholding system and that attorney needs to receive that 30% directly from the client. So there's pros and cons to that you guys are aware of, but those are the differences. Going back to where I was going, the court is different. Most attorneys, when they're practicing at the court, do not charge on an hourly basis to the client. They obtained their attorney's fees through a law called the EJA Act, Equal Access to I forget what the acronym stands for. Just know EJA. Quickly Google EJA and it'll explain it pretty clearly. But basically, it's the government that ends up paying the attorney's fees in the case, not the veteran client. Okay, I hope that answered that question. Another good one, would the water contamination at Camp Lejeune Marine Base be considered presumptive service connection? Absolutely, yes. That is part of the PACT Act, which I'm sure you guys have heard of in the news. I forget the exact, it's a long thing. It's like honoring our PACT Act, yada, yada, yada. Within the PACT Act is a whole section on Camp Lejeune. If you're interested in that, VA's website actually goes into the Camp Lejeune stuff specifically and lists out the disabilities that are presumptively service connected. And when you want to learn more about presumptive service connection in general, like the conditions for Agent Orange, which is very common, the regulation, I believe off the top of my head, is 38 CFR 3.309. Go there, take a deep dive to see that. Let's see. Okay, so great question. I want Vanessa to chime in on this. So get ready, Vanessa. Can you apply? Can you apply for a paralegal position in a VA law firm without having the experience? Or if, for instance, making a career move from personal injury to VA? So I'll quickly provide my answer and I'll let Vanessa chime in. As an attorney working at a exclusively veterans disability law firm, if I have a candidate that has experience, I'm going to take them 99% of the time over a person that doesn't have experience, which I know is not the answer you want to hear if you're extremely interested in this area and you don't have experience. My best suggestion is I would maybe get into NOVA, take some CLEs, demonstrate some of your background knowledge, and show how willing you are to learn quickly. And yes, you can find a law firm that will hire you without experience, because I do think right now, just generally knowing the field, there are a lot of law firms looking for quality paralegals. And if you're a hard worker and you can learn, they'll hire you because they're desperate for a paralegal. Vanessa, you want to chime in?
Yes. So just to give you guys an example, when I originally started with Victoria, I did have experience as a paralegal, but I did not have experience as a veterans law paralegal. So that was 5 years ago. I am a veteran, so I had an advantage and I fought for my own claims. But still, just the fact that if you have experience as a paralegal, I think you can apply to a VA law veterans law firm, and then just probably you will have to start from the bottom, meaning yes, you have experience as a paralegal. But if you are interested and you dive into the regulations and learning the process, everything that has to do with veterans law, you will learn pretty quickly. If you're fascinated with it, you're very interested in it. Even if you have family members that are veterans, I think it will beneficial for you, and definitely apply for it.
Yeah, that also reminds me of a point that I didn't make. I'm actually not a veteran. That might be obvious, but you never want to stereotype. And sometimes I get the question of, do you get treated like, do they not trust you as much because you weren't a veteran yourself? You don't understand, like, what they went through. I've actually never had that problem. Once clients know that you know your crap and you care about them, they don't mind. So if you're a paralegal that wasn't a veteran, that doesn't harm you either. So let's see what else we got here. See if anything else. Oh, here's a good quick one. Is an agent a paralegal? Not necessarily. They don't have to. So we have paralegals that are not agents, and then Vanessa is a paralegal that is also an agent. You can also be an agent, just an agent. The VSOs are agents. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, really anyone can be an agent as long as you go through the accreditation process. Can the courses be done online? I'm guessing this is for the accreditation course or maybe the CLE. Of course, all CLEs, there's so many online ones, but I'm guessing she's talking about the course.
If
Actually,
you're referring to, I'm not sure if they
maybe
can.
she's talking about the test for accreditation.
So yes, the information, basically the test will be based on the regulations that Victoria already explained. So my recommendation will be study those. Once you apply and you are selected to take the test, the examiner or the VA person will send you an email with all the topics that will be covered and the regulation where you can find it. So I studied for a very long time. I obviously I was already working veterans law, but I had to study again and again and again those chapters because you don't know which questions you're gonna get. It could be scenarios. So if you know what if you're very involved in the compensation process, you can you will know the answers. But there's some that are regulation specific. So you will have time. They will give you the regulations, the chapters, and they will tell you in 2 months the test will be done.
Yep. All right, awesome. So we have some really good questions here. So let's see. Some long ones too. I'm going to save some of these long ones for the end. Mention.
Can I
Here's a great.
answer? There's one that says, what are the pay scales like for paralegals in this
Yeah,
field?
Vanessa, that's a good one.
Yes, it will be the same. It will depend on your experience. Like I said, when I started, I have experience as a paralegal, but I did not have experience as a veterans law paralegal. So I started at the basic rate, and the more, you know, it will depend on your experience in as a paralegal.
Mhm.
So it will be basically the same as what you've been doing. If you have a lot of experience in veterans law, you will be paid more.
Yeah. And of course, it depends on the law firm size. Bigger law firms do have the ability to pay paralegals more. But then there's pros and cons. Our law firm is 9 people, which I would consider mid-size in veterans law. And so it just depends if, you know, there's benefits to working at smaller law firms and mid-size law firms. So um, take that into consideration. Let's see here. Can I apply to be an agent and work in veterans law even though I get VA disability myself? Great question. Absolutely. Yes, you can. Plenty of people do this. One interesting tidbit, though, is that once you become an agent and you have VBMS access, which is that system I talked about where you can see all the claims files and stuff for your clients, you can't see your own. Correct, Vanessa?
Correct. And I was
They
going to
get
say,
weird.
yes, as I explained, I'm 100% service-connected veteran. I am a senior paralegal, and and this is what I do, veterans law. So yes, you definitely can.
Yes.
Like Victoria said, you just cannot go in VBMS and access your file because you will only get access to the clients that are signed with you, that sign that power of attorney.
Yeah. So that's weird. You would think that, oh, well, can I just log in and see my own like rating system? No, you have to go through e-benefits and stuff like a typical veteran. Do you happen to have anyone who helps you with the VA once it comes to fee questions? Fee questions. So you haven't. So I don't know if you mean like someone at the VA that answers fee questions. Getting any question answered from the VA is almost impossible. So yeah, just my firm over the years have come into contact with people that are at the VA that can really that are helpful. There is actually someone that I know of at the VA with an email address that helps us. I may be willing to share that if you email me. But if you're talking about like just anyone outside the VA that just, if you have fee questions, who can I ask? Nova, like I said, is a great resource. You can ask me. Yeah, my answer for that one. Oh, I want to answer this one. When you take on a case, what is a typical time frame from start to finish? Vanessa and I both laugh. We get this question from clients, and oh God. So it could be 2 months, it could be 6 months, it could be my entire veterans law career from law school. I have clients that I have signed from fresh out of law school that I still have as clients. So it depends, is the typical lawyer answer on the complexity, how much VA is giving you trouble. And so if clients ask that, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But if you do have a client that really needs like some kind of answer, I would base it off of the appeal method that you're going with. Let's say you're a paralegal at a law firm, client's like, you know, how long will this process take? And you're about to file a higher level review. Take a look at how long does a higher level review typically take to process on the VA's website. There's average times. I would add to those average times for sure. But I would start off with like, hey, I think we're going to get a decision from the higher level review in, roughly 6 months. Can't guarantee. But of course, that decision could be a denial, and then we have to reevaluate from there. I'm going to go back up to some of the longer questions. We have a client who cannot get a 100% disability rating. He is at 80%. Cannot stand, walk, bed, chair bound, going blind. What is the best referral for someone in this situation?
Send it to us.
Wife work. Sorry, what?
Send it to us. We will evaluate and talk to you.
Wife works full-time. He needs full-time care. He is at home. Basically, you're asking, yeah, best referral. This is what I do every day. This is the typical case I have. But I would look for a law firm that I'm biased. I do think that you should refer to law firms that practice exclusively in VA. There are a lot of big law firms. I'm not going to mention some that are in Florida or all over the country that practice in all these different areas of law. And then they say, oh, like we also do veterans law. I would take that with a grain of salt because they may not know all the nooks and crannies of veterans law. So to answer your question, find a law firm near that client or not. It doesn't have to be near that client that practices in VA disability. And that reminds me to mention that once you become accredited, or if you are an attorney practicing in veterans law, you can represent clients all over the country or the world, which is great. You're not limited to just Florida. You can reach client. We have clients in California. We have everywhere. So that's a great thing to know. And the clients seem perfectly fine with never meeting us. We do have clients nearby that we meet every now and then, but yeah, they've been fine with it. You mentioned helping a veteran with hurricane damage relief. Is there a specific program for veterans without disabilities to ask for help? Good question. I don't know the answer, but I would direct you to the Florida VA, right, Vanessa?
Yes, they can. I know, and there's one of the pamphlets that they will receive that is specific for Florida if it's a Florida veteran that assist with all of this. In the case that Victoria was mentioned earlier, it's a current client. We're assisting with compensation claims, and we submitted an advancement on the docket due to she lost actually part of her house, the veteran, and due to hurricane damage. So in that case, I think that's what Victoria was referring to. But yes, there are, once you receive the pamphlet, there's some, and I like the Florida one, obviously specific for Florida veterans, because we have different benefits that other states do not have, for example.
Yep. I think it's about time for us to wrap up. So I wanted to thank you guys for listening to me talk for an hour. And I do apologize again. I don't know if you guys could tell, I really was out of breath and like my voice was shaky. So I'm glad you guys stuck around and listened to me. And I really hope it was helpful. Feel free to reach out to both Vanessa and I. We love this and we could talk about it for hours and hours. So we'll answer your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Victoria and Vanessa, for participating today and for everyone else participating in today's webinar. The course number for today's webinar is 9134. Again, that number is 9134. This webinar has been approved by the Florida Bar Continuing Legal Education Department for 1 hour of general CLE credit. Please self-report this course in the member portal. You will also receive an email tomorrow via Zoom outlining this information. It will also have a copy of Victoria's PowerPoint and the corresponding materials as referenced in the presentation. I also encourage Florida bar members and Florida registered paralegals to take advantage of the Florida Lawyers Helpline, which is a completely confidential and free service, which entitles you to 5 counseling sessions per year to help you develop strategies to overcome life's challenges, balance priorities, and better handle both personal and professional pressures. This concludes today's webinar. Thanks so much.